live in a twilight where it's a blind for them to vanish you. Kill you. Have 2 minutes. Make up.
You're running from it. Talking to the passenger. Did you have an out? Take his exit. I don't trust us anymore. The tracks.
Taking out the audience.
Look away. We don't have to kill these people.
That wasn't one of us.
Okay, go, 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 go!
No!
So your colleagues will be 15 minutes. Death. Uh-oh.
Welcome to the afterlife. Coma, well, we got you out of it.
Pills.
A test.
Did my team get
Russians, we think. Not you. We'd run into the burning building. We can...
Rosanna?
Your duty transcends... There's a Cold War. Cold nature is to lose. Tenet. It'll open the... Not everybody does.
His vest and a clip.
I thought I was here
How?
to do what I do. Nuclear.
Something worse.
It's empty.
Aim it. One of these bullets is like us, backwards. Entropy runs backwards. It's inverse radiation.
So where'd it come from?
Try it. Have dropped it. From your point of view,
The cost comes before. Well, what about free will?
either way we run the tape, you... You're not
Whoa. I've seen this type of ammunition.
exceedingly lucky. Not pretty. Made today and inverted years. Material I'm studying here.
The mixture alloys can... I'm not saying
A bullet may not seem like much, even a nuclear weapon can be able to affect our past as well. Know that we know what to look. Remnants of detritus of a coming war.
Building.
Even the dead need Mumbai. I need to get to Sanjay.
Chelsea.
Yes, it is.
Bombay Yacht Club in 2 hours.
You need an introduction to a... I'm Neo. That's no problem. Time isn't the problem. A woman?
A fight.
Coca tonic. What? Oh.
Well, I prefer soda water. Training. Sings houses and I don't think bungee jumpable. was almost taken out by applied.
No chit-chat?
Gonna help you anyway. Speak to India.
Negotiation.
Or the man they send to make deals. Steal a friend. This may be the easiest for
Mind would violate
you. Then you can.
to my husband's head.
It's your operation.
The dealer you're looking for is Andrei.
Made his billions with Moscow.
Actually plutonium. When I told him that I would believe he's emails, credit cards. The
And I'm supposed to find out.
protagonist. Just find out what he's. I have a contact. Getting out.
I presume you mean sir.
Started without you.
Same for me.
I gather you.
So I have to watch my step.
He's feeding them rubbish, but I assume you're familiar.
He's not shown on maps. Renamed as regular towns.
In the 70s, you had a pub. Some kind of accident should go the same day as in Siberia, just where blank spot on the map. His way into the British subject bomb. She was estranged.
Inflated idea of my powers of
Have an ace in the hole.
a Goya and a Herod's.
One of the two we confiscated Shipley's authenticated.
Her husband know it's a forgery?
And the repo were closed. No offense. Save the world, then
I'll manage.
more of a
Certainly.
Goya? To see it about Goya. What's it worth?
Provenance.
Does your heart tell you?
So where did
Dollar from an irate Swiss bank. He told me who paid top dollar for
The drawing's an obvious fake.
information's the bargain. He and I are in related business.
Arrangement isn't.
Anything about
Why would he? Just on
Where'd you go, Mark?
his yacht. I think you're a little.
Actions like your husband's.
The drawing. The one controls me. It would never have been easy, but now it's impossible. In Vietnam back. Imitating him. My son again. I expressed myself.
You don't seem jealous. Did you share a son? Did you know the drawing was a fake?
I failed. Betraying my husband.
Free.
If you'd actually met one.
We spoke on the phone.
Why?
Give me an introduction. No more holdover.
I need redemption. Andrei dislikes to
Me.
the look of it. You won't be taken.
As you.
Not always, apparently.
And see lava.
Told you I'd surprise you.
Everything. Slow. At the airport. We started a network importing the clients.
It's without importing them, so they are.
Art and legal.
But
And this way to the vault.
4 or 5 times a year. No importance to Andrei.
The structure of the vaults is damage to one structure won't off the time.
of course,
Any other Freeport in
you really want to know. Those. Or pay attention.
Documents are vulnerable to...
we don't use sprinkler. Displacing all the air we'd suffocate. The vaults, they just have to get into.
Please just give them 10 seconds.
No priorities.
Proof, hydraulic close down.
While lockdown.
Inner doors revert to step. It's child's play, really.
So not on grade.
With a lockdown procedure.
You got some. A plane.
Off the taxiway.
Well, how big a plane?
A little dramatic. Even work the plane.
We can't
Side of the Freeport. Come off.
on the move. It's bold.
We won't. One's died, so... Oh, depends on the site.
Go with bars.
Drop it out on the runway. Guarantee you.
God, it's too big.
Won't you be running?
sir? All I got here is vegetarian. Like meat, but juicy, you know? This way, gentlemen. Carry on.
I need to go. Take care of him.
Trust me. Or maybe I'll... Temporal. Technology that can invert analogy.
Like 5-minute wheels.
That's exactly what I meant.
Patience it is.
Beyond boxes of bullets.
When you have to do that, so would I.
Your work?
2 antagonists. Inverted one got away.
They were the same.
Turnstile. Technology hasn't been invented yet.
We met him.
I was close.
Plutonium took from under the CIA team at not the 241. Moving to Telent in a week.
Plutonium is unacceptable.
Sator has to stay alive. The situation without a terrorist bomb, even one.
From doing what?
I saw the news. You destroyed it.
Not yet. So
It's a little less of me.
it won't be
With what?
a party last June. 30. Salmon was on the printer. I came into Shipley's and
I think we're having an affair.
don't you worry about that.
Sleep 70 with crew.
Pirates?
One drainage.
May I join you? Mine.
Max! You tried to have beat.
Who is he?
A student at the American Embassy Department, Andrei. Max!
He's
Him off.
Easy. Mr. Sator.
If you slept with my wife,
Not yet. Old.
there's a wall got across in the middle, like them in the cut. Look, watch a man you don't like chokes.
Is it?
Well, today ready to do more than this.
All this here, taking him back. Finish. Little man playing power game. Die.
It had been destroyed. That's how I built this life.
Was 3/4. The Kyiv on the 14th. I would have put over his tracks. They're on base. You can if you have to.
Let him drown.
I need Diane.
Of that I know.
I had to get close.
Dealer.
It holds all of our lives in his...
Miss.
Save it.
You have a better...
Whatever it takes to get what you're gonna do to me now.
And half my age. Me.
It's nothing.
Be in debt.
Wait.
At least my harness. My own mistake.
It's weapons-grade plutonium.
On the rubble of my city. My home of a warhead exploded. They needed people to... It became my first contest. One is another. Even...
The 241, the long-term nuclear resources in Talent.
About today.
Other women.
The other women, huh? You can bite down on that.
Your soul is blank and birth fear and pain enough, Andrei. Why didn't you just let
have you. Think I'll let him enter...
deal?
For such exertion. Shouldn't concern you. Information about the opera.
You would... How the CIA...
Not selling.
Is that Whitman?
Your team.
My wife does the exchange.
And pretty much sure.
The funds.
Handle the plutonium better.
No mold marks, nothing. Capsule transmits the location. Seemingly inspired for centuries. Asia, ready. Unpredictable traffic pattern. Wrong turn, income the cap. There's a fast bus, coach, 18. We have to set this up with nothing. They're ambushing us once we... Is our only protection.
Singed, but...
It's not my area of expertise. This, Andrei.
Builds on your back and our boy.
I stop.
Time to go.
And understand. You admire feel. It's true.
Already tried. My blood's not cold.
Despair.
Thinking that you're better!
Give me all the details.
One.
first class. This is not one of them.
It's not a stone.
Go, 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 go!
This is a plutonium.
It's what?
If you're not telling the truth,
You know what you're talking about. I told you that. I don't know.
tell me or I'll shoot.
I can help you.
Sends a bullet to the head. Bring him.
Okay, the BMW. I left it in the B. It's in the club.
Carol, go out there.
I already told you.
Here, I hope you'll be happy.
We're gonna go check the other side. Past.
We're going to check. Three.
Tell me, is it really in the BMW? Who told you that? Talking about.
It's one of us. Howard. It's in the middle of the street. Can't stay out of them.
Somebody talk. Who was it? You've known too much. I'm going to ask.
Running a temporal pincer move. But not in space. Through the event, you monitor.
Except for West, that's
That was what he was after.
verify inside the room. Operating procedure.
Standard operation. Process radiation by inverting the patient. 15 minutes ago. Before that, it stops. There's no way of bringing you back. Where? Inside an airport security perimeter.
We're going in.
This is the proving window.
As you the machine. Why not?
Yeah. Let's go.
Stay like 4 or 5 days.
Get us to Oslo. I'm going back out there. Save her from getting away with whatever. He does. What happens to her here?
Let him make a change. You're not here to observe it. We need to see. You might hand him exactly what he's after.
Okay.
Can't stay here.
So why don't you find us a nice...
This is cowboy shit.
So I'm going, so any tips will be what?
Regular air won't pass. Don't come into contact with your
We don't have time.
annihilation. A moment to orient yourself. Run, the wind will be at your back. Transfer of heat is reversed. Normal.
Can I travel?
Resistance are reversed.
Case,
Tell us that.
give me the reader.
Other sections of the algorithm wasn't in the BMW.
You made me get my pulse above 130.
Guys in his team had a cleanup.
Head it back to Oslo.
Never.
I handed it to him on a plate. I get it now.
That's not
Working for Priya?
No, you got to know that right now. And you still care?
Apparently Neil here.
Cat anything with compromise.
She has the right to know why she might.
And we do.
What's that?
In the case.
What's the algorithm?
One is one section of it, rendered into physical form, so one function. Objects or peoples. Invert the entropy of more and dominate. They always swim pushing against the environment. You know, that wind. It can. Oh.
A little more precise.
Ever enough?
Including
Moistly.
I've been thinking if they destroy us, for what?
Oh, Father, how could you have been born? But in a few days, gouge his eyes out.
Could they be right?
So they're willing to sleep now.
No, I think. Doesn't us being.
To parallel worlds theory, we can't. So your head hurt.
They did. Breach. The chaos right. She healed enough?
Never done this before.
Breach. I take care of Sator.
How's it?
What?
Bleed.
We're going in. Was me coming out of that vault.
Brain.
But after.
Tap, tap. You'll be okay.
I do what? You don't know where he is.
Yeah, she tells me about the 241. Just get it here.
What's going on?
We almost died. In 2 days, you're gonna have me dangle dealer. Now, I wanna know why. Hold of the algorithm.
It's you will be forced to make another.
A son.
You're familiar with the manist. Oppenheimer became good in halving the world.
They went.
Her generation's Oppenheimer. It becomes convinced that
Father Paradox.
splitting the algorithm into 9
The past. Here.
9 bombs. The best hiding place. Sator's lifelong mission: reassemble the algorithm.
The collapse of the Soviet Union. How many sections does he have?
To change things? We don't live in it. No, I'm not. If you had known what the algorithm was.
You want?
Wait.
I was supposed to. You used
Standard operating.
my part.
You. Art world?
No. I haven't told you where he's assembling. I'm not. So deal us in.
You want to involve her again?
But he used to. Your turn. Assuming she
Can't.
If you don't have the authority, your word.
His word in our line of business. There's a rally point offshore. Team ready to invert.
Yes.
Fighting fire with fire. I want to continue. If found it. And defend it.
How do you feel? Can't.
Headman switch. It'll be linked to a switch. Airdrop. Set the fire.
He dies, the world ends.
No, you've missed. He's intending to end his life. Get cancer. Can't happen. No one can.
End of the world.
You told me about a hop. You said he vanished. What day?
14th, 10 days ago.
How do you know about that?
So that's his window.
To go back.
We have to lift the algorithm himself.
I know the rest of it. You're not going to tell me.
Why?
You have to try.
Wish if they're going to be his last.
We're working can I write back to do to prepare?
This grounds a detonation and stops to the center. That explodes.
Oh, before the bomb goes off.
This is goodbye, isn't it? The worst thing Andrei ever did to me, never to see my son again. I swore. I don't know if I hate. I know what that means to a mother.
It's not usually personal. You're not there to lift that algorithm and he killed Siberia. Time for Vietnam.
Who gets me on the...
Boy, carry this. State your location.
Now, and today you've been divided into two teams. In order to distinguish the team by Commander Wheeler are invert. 1 hour from now, then we'll drop down as possible. Their objective of this briefing. Both teams have pending to 0 to the
The LZ at 0.
We drop in the city proper. These respect the bitemporal conventional side of the city. Round, take this tunnel from the city, okay, hit an entrance here. To trigger a collapse. The explosion takes views of that bomb.
Which is?
Nathan, good, we'll discuss.
I wanted to be on the first
Simultaneously. But now you want to be... Yeah, that's up. Don't want... I thought we manage ourselves.
Snuck back to surprise Andrei. Here. Max is unsure then what happened.
I was joking. It we both know my opinion of you.
We have the sunset coming.
Max will be here soon. Max.
Know the difference.
It's business, brother.
Road clear! I repeat!
We don't have anything. See if he's got a grenade. Anything?
I hope not. My journey began when you bound up with radiation. I made it. We sold our future. For somebody you fight for a cause, so little you've told them nothing. Which ties with you. But yielded a pyramid to keep.
What's all for...
And armor time itself swept in will warm the
They want to kill us!
Don't you see the hands above?
This generation looks like you. You're a traitor.
When I'm done, life continues. A son into a world I knew was
You don't believe in God.
The rest is...
Without it...
a god.
You're forgetting. I've met her.
I'll just give her mine. You have no idea what
That sounds terribly.
Where are you going?
Can't do this. I'm letting you go to your grave thinking you're dying alone, Andrei. Look, this I'm not the woman.
She's killed him. I can come.
I knew you'd find a way.
Found a way. 2 seconds.
Change gears halfway. Yeah, you know.
Wasn't me. This leaves the field.
Alright. We hide it. The only way to be sure.
They're gonna kill us.
Yes.
Dangerous. Far.
Wait! I don't know any longer. Look at this mission.
Neil, wait!
Just save the world.
But can we change things if we...
Which is an expression to do nothing. Reveiw, let me go. Yes, by now. What? 3 years from now for you.
But for me, it's just the beginning.
You're gonna love it. Oh, pizza. You're only up.
And even if they did, only the one that did.
Do it before the boy comes out.
Posterity.
I have to die.
I realized I was antagonist.
Makes no sense.
The danger. It changed the world.
The film opens at an opera house in Kyiv. Just as the performance is about to commence, Ukrainian gunmen storm the place, shooting the conductor and terrorizing the orchestra and patrons. Outside the building, an undercover SWAT team prepares to head in. They gas the place to put the patrons and performers to sleep as they head in to rescue a compromised spy, Jefferson Hall, and recover an unknown artifact. A man known only as the Protagonist, John David Washington, identifies the spy with the phrase, "We live in a twilight world," to which the man replies, "And there are no friends at dusk." After the spy is recovered, the team handles the gunmen's bombs. The protagonist goes down to recover the bombs and sees a bullet hole. An unknown agent with a red tag on his bag steps in and appears to take the bullet as it flies backwards from where it was shot. The agents then throw the bombs into the nosebleeds, where there are no patrons as it explodes. As the agents are getting away, the protagonist is captured. The man wakes up between 2 train tracks as his captors have him and another agent tied up, attempting to torture them for information. The protagonist tries to take a cyanide pill, but one of the captors takes it from him. The other agent on the ground takes his out, and the protagonist jumps for it and takes it, seemingly dying. He later awakens in a hospital, as this was just a test, meaning that the pill was fake, but all his colleagues are dead. His boss, Victor, Martin Donovan, recruits him for a new mission under an organization called Tenet, as this new job concerns the fate of the world. The protagonist is taken to meet a woman named Laura, Clemence Posey, who is set to show him how things pertaining to the mission work out. She gives him a gun with an empty magazine and has him aim it at a rock. The bullet in the rock flies back into the gun. Laura explains that the entropy of the bullets is inverted, which means they pass backwards through time. Through more tests, the protagonist sees that he can catch or move the inverted bullets in the right position. The people in charge have gathered more inverted items, and the plan is to locate the source of the inverted bullets before the creators can use their technology to pass things like nuclear weapons through inversion. The protagonist tracks the bullets to a man named Sanjay Singh, Denzel Smith. He calls Victor to ask for assistance in infiltrating Sanjay's home. The protagonist is met by a local man named Neil, Robert Pattinson, who was sent to help. The two use bungee cords later that night to make it up into Sanjay's building, but as they try to interrogate him, they find that the one to speak to is Sanjay's wife, Priya, Dimple Kapadia, who works for Tenet. She speaks to the protagonist and says the bullets come from a Russian oligarch named Andrei Sator, Kenneth Branagh, who can apparently communicate with the future. Priya tells the protagonist to get close to Andrei and find out how he produces the inverted bullets. The protagonist meets with Sir Michael Crosby, Michael Caine, in a restaurant. Crosby tells him about how Andrei grew up in a Soviet secret city that endured a major accident, and it was later used for underground testing. Andrei came out from there and built a fortune before staying in England and marrying a woman named Catherine Barton, Elizabeth Debicki, with whom he is now estranged. Crosby suggests he get close to Andrei through Kat, and he gives the protagonist a fake Goya painting that is one of two, the other one having been bought by Andrei. After observing Kat with her son Max, Laurie Shepard, the protagonist meets her and learns that Andrei is blackmailing her by threatening to expose her part in the fraud with the painting. The last time they were happy was on his yacht in Vietnam, but he offered her a chance to leave, on the condition that she never see Max again. Kat reacted in rage and left with Max, and as she got away, she observed a woman diving off the yacht. Moments later, some of Andrei's henchmen arrive to escort Kat out. A few stay in the kitchen as the protagonist tries to follow her, and he fights them off. Kat even sees this as one henchman falls through the door before she is driven away. Kat calls the protagonist back and tries to have him steal the painting back. He works with Neil and a fixer named Mahir, Himesh Patel, to break into Andrei's storage facility at Oslo Airport. After Neil gathers intel on the place, he determines that the security is going to be very tight, so he plans to crash a plane into the hangar as a distraction. Together with a crew, the team enacts their plan as the Protagonist, and Neil enter the facility under professional guises. The cargo jet containing a ton of gold bars crashes, and the two head on to a room where they find a room separated between a glass window with a machine on both ends. The window has bullet holes that the protagonist says come from an event that hasn't happened yet. The machine opens and two identical men, antagonists, emerge. The one on Neil's side runs past him, but the other one, who is inverted, appears to struggle with the protagonist. The antagonist reaches for an inverted gun, which catch the bullets from the holes. Neil returns after unmasking the other antagonist, but he stops the protagonist from killing the other man, just as he appears to fly out the loading door. They then position themselves safely before a recovery team enters the facility. The protagonist meets with Priya on a boat, where he learns that the machine is called a turnstile, which is what inverts time and was made in the future. She also reminds him not to kill Andrei before they know what connection he has with the future. Kat is told that the painting was destroyed, and she later sets up a meeting with Andrei. The protagonist joins them and others for a dinner, where Andrei appears to try and threaten the protagonist over his supposed involvement with Kat, since he has seen them together. However, the protagonist manages to get Andrei to set up a boating trip for the next morning to discuss the opera. Before Kat and Andrei head to meet the protagonist, he tells her that instinct told him to move the painting before the crash. They meet with him and have a brief discussion before Kat tries to drown Andrei by loosening his harness. The protagonist then turns the boat around to rescue Andrei. Kat chastises him for it, as well as for lying to him about the painting. Andrei then asks to meet with the protagonist for repayment, and he asks not only for him to not retaliate against Kat, but also to help acquire a case of plutonium that Andrei has his eyes on. Andrei recounts digging plutonium out of his hometown and killing a co-worker to prevent anyone else from securing better opportunities. He goes to his room with Kat and threatens her, explicitly stating that if he cannot have her, nobody can. Andrei then goes outside as a helicopter comes down with a crate containing gold bars. The protagonist observes as Andrei beats another man to death with a gold bar. He is spotted and grabbed by Andrei's henchmen, and he attempts to out the protagonist as a spy with the Twilight World phrase, but he doesn't budge. He then lets the protagonist go and agrees to help with getting the plutonium from Telent. The protagonist reconvenes with Neil to enact the heist. Meanwhile, Kat and Andrei have another heated confrontation over her attempt to kill him, as she now has a gun aimed at him. He beats her and then takes her as a hostage. The protagonist and Neil follow a truck and have their team use other vehicles. Ties surround the truck, allowing the protagonist to make his way in and grab the plutonium case, only to see that the item is not plutonium, but a different artifact entirely. Andrei's van drives up near them as he shows them he is aiming a gun at Kat's head. An inverted car that previously appeared to crash passes between them, driving in reverse, and the protagonist appears to toss the case to Andrei. He then tries to make his way to the other car as Andrei switches cars so that he can save Kat. After the vehicles stop, Andrei's men shoot at the protagonist and Neil. The protagonist is captured and brought to a separated room like the one at the Oslo facility. Andrei has Kat while they are inverted, and he demands to know where the plutonium is, even going as far as to wound Kat in the abdomen with an inverted bullet. The protagonist tells him the plutonium is in the glove box of the inverted BMW. After Andrei leaves, other Tenet agents led by Neil and Agent Ives, Aaron Taylor Johnson, come in to kill his men. They get the protagonist and Kat to safety, but she is dying from the bullet wound. The protagonist becomes suspicious of Neil after learning he was always involved with Tenet, thinking he led Andrei to know more than he lets on. He reveals he lied about the location of the artifact. The protagonist tries to save Kat by bringing her through the turnstile to take them through the previous week. He enters through the machine with a respiratory mask. Inverted lungs won't support normal air and vice versa, and drives to the moment of the chase where he ends up in the BMW that crashes. After Andrei sees that what he wants isn't there, the car explodes, but the inversion causes the protagonist to almost freeze. After he is recovered, he and Neil go through with taking Kat through the turnstile to go to the week before to the Oslo facility. The protagonist enters, revealing himself as the antagonists. He fights his inverted self while Neil had seen that the person he was chasing was the protagonist. He then uninverts himself, and Kat is okay. The protagonist meets with Priya again, where he learns this time that the artifacts that Andrei was looking for are meant to make up a device called an algorithm, which he may use to invert the entire world. Future humans are said to be using the algorithm to reverse the effects of global warming. Priya tells the protagonist that is not the only protagonist that is capable of saving the world, but he believes he is. When he suggests that they continue using Kat to get close to Andrei and stop him from using the algorithm, Priya arranges for the two to meet on a ship. Kat tells the protagonist that Andrei is secretly dying from pancreatic cancer, and his plan is to use the algorithm to kill himself at the right moment, inverting humanity and wiping them all out using the same "if I can't have you" reasoning. She suspects that he will commit the act on the day they were on their yacht in Vietnam. The protagonist and Neil meet with Ives and his team as they head to the location of the dead drop, where the algorithm is assembled, and will be set off, which is in the secret city Andrei came from. Ives instructs his team to go through a temporary pincer movement, which will see half of them moving normal and the other half moving inverted to get through the zone. Meanwhile, Kat inverts herself to go back to the day on the yacht to delay Andrei from killing himself. As the Tenet agents run through the zone, coming across numerous explosions, the protagonist heads into the drop zone with Neil's help, as well as a masked agent with a red tag, similar to the agent at the Opera House, but they are prevented from reaching the algorithm because of a gate. He appears to take a gunshot from a henchman, but since he is inverted, he helps the protagonist make it through the gate to retrieve the algorithm. After the plan succeeds, Kat decides she cannot stand to watch Andrei die happy, thinking he won. So she drops sunscreen and water on the deck before shooting Andrei in the chest. She then uses the greased-up floor to push his body off the yacht, where he hits the railing on the way down. Kat then jumps from the yacht, revealing that her past self witnessed her own self jumping. She goes to meet with Mahir. The protagonist, Neil, and Ives disassemble the algorithm, and Ives orders the two to stay hidden or he will have to kill them. As Neil and Ives walk away, the protagonist notices the red tag in Neil's bag, meaning he was the one who got shot near the gate, and all the way back to the Opera House mission. He bids the protagonist farewell, revealing that it was he all along who recruited Neil for Tenet in the future. And this is the end of a friendship that the protagonist hasn't encountered yet. In London, Priya and one of her gunmen watch Kat as she goes to pick up Max from school. Before they can move in on her, the protagonist kills the gunman and sits behind Priya in her car. He tells her that will go on to be the founder of Tenet, and that they were both working for him all along. Since she is a loose end, the protagonist kills Priya. He then watches Kat leave with Max. The movie begins in Kyiv, inside a crowded opera house where everything seems completely normal. People are settling into their seats, waiting for the performance to begin, and there is no obvious indication that the building is about to become the center of a dangerous international operation. But the peaceful atmosphere does not last. Armed Ukrainian gunmen suddenly storm the opera house, turning what should have been an ordinary evening into complete chaos. People panic, the performers are threatened, and the conductor is shot. At the same time, outside the building, a heavily equipped undercover SWAT team is preparing to enter. Their objective is not simply to stop the attackers. They have been sent in to rescue a compromised spy and recover an unknown artifact, which immediately tells us that there is something much bigger happening behind this attack. The team uses gas to put the people inside the opera house to sleep while they move through the building. Among the agents is a mysterious man who is never given a conventional name. He is simply referred to as the Protagonist. Even though we know very little about him at this stage, his actions quickly show that he is highly trained, calm under pressure, and willing to sacrifice himself if necessary. He identifies the compromised spy using a secret phrase, saying, "We live in a twilight world." The spy responds, "And there are no friends at dusk." At first, this sounds like a standard intelligence code used to confirm someone's identity. But as the story develops, these words become part of the larger mystery surrounding the world the protagonist has entered. The operation becomes increasingly dangerous when the agents discover explosives inside the opera house. The protagonist goes down to deal with the bombs, and this is where the movie quietly introduces its strangest idea. He notices a bullet hole and then witnesses something that should not be possible. A mysterious agent wearing a red tag appears to take a bullet as it flies backward toward the weapon that fired it. The moment is quick, confusing, and deliberately unexplained. The protagonist does not stop to analyze what he has seen because he has a much more immediate problem. The explosives have to be dealt with before they kill everyone in the building. The agents throw the bombs into an empty section of the opera house where there are no civilians, and the explosives detonate. The operation appears to be over, but the protagonist is captured while attempting to escape. This is where the movie takes its first major turn. The protagonist wakes up between two railway tracks, where his captors have tied him up alongside another agent. They want information, and they are prepared to torture him to get it. For the protagonist, this is the ultimate test of loyalty. He knows that revealing information could expose the operation and endanger countless other people. Instead of giving his captors what they want, he chooses to die. He attempts to swallow a cyanide pill, but one of the men takes it away from him. Another agent lying nearby still has his own pill, and the protagonist struggles to reach it. He finally gets hold of it and swallows it, apparently choosing death rather than betrayal. But then he wakes up. The cyanide pill was fake. The entire torture sequence was a test. His superiors wanted to know whether he would protect his mission even if he believed there was no chance of survival. He passed the test, but there is a devastating price attached to it. His colleagues are dead, and the life he knew before this moment is effectively finished. The protagonist is now recruited for a completely different kind of mission. His boss, Victor, introduces him to an organization known as Tenet, and he learns that what he has just experienced was only the beginning. The new mission is connected to something that could determine the fate of the entire world. This is an important moment because the protagonist is no longer working within the normal rules of espionage. He has entered a world where information is more dangerous than weapons, and where time itself can become part of the battlefield. The movie does not immediately explain everything to him or to us. Instead, it gives him pieces of information and allows the mystery to grow. The protagonist is eventually introduced to Laura, a woman who explains one of the most unusual discoveries connected to the mission. She gives him a gun with an empty magazine and tells him to point it at a rock. At first, nothing happens. Then something impossible occurs. A bullet that is already inside the rock suddenly flies backward and enters the gun. It looks as though the bullet has been pulled out of the rock and returned to the weapon. Laura explains that the bullet has inverted entropy. This is the first time the protagonist begins to understand what he is dealing with. These bullets are not ordinary ammunition. They have been altered so that they move through time differently from normal objects. Instead of following the normal direction of cause and effect, they appear to move backward. A normal bullet is fired, travels through the air, hits something, and remains there. An inverted bullet appears to begin with the result and move backward toward the action that caused it. That means the bullet is not simply moving backward through space. Its relationship with time has been reversed. The protagonist experiments with the bullets and begins to understand that inverted objects can be handled, but they require him to think differently. His natural instincts tell him to expect objects to behave normally, yet these objects are governed by another direction of time. The people investigating them have already collected other inverted objects, and that leads to a much more frightening question. If someone has found a way to invert bullets, what else can be inverted? A bullet is dangerous, but a nuclear weapon would be catastrophic. And if the technology can eventually affect living people or the entire environment, the consequences could become almost impossible to imagine. The mission therefore changes from simply finding unusual ammunition to discovering where this technology came from and who is controlling it. The protagonist tracks the origin of the bullets to a man named Sanjay Singh. He contacts Victor and asks for help infiltrating Sanjay's home, but he does not go into the operation alone. A local operative named Neil is sent to assist him. Neil is introduced as an extremely capable and confident man, and the chemistry between him and the protagonist immediately gives the movie a different energy. The protagonist is serious and focused, while Neil appears more relaxed, often behaving as though even the most dangerous situation is something he has already seen before. The two men use bungee equipment to enter Sanjay's building during the night. They expect to question Sanjay, but once they reach him, they discover that he is not the person they really need to speak to. The person who matters is his wife, Priya, and Priya is not an ordinary civilian. She is connected to Tenet. Priya explains that the inverted bullets are linked to a powerful Russian oligarch named Andrei Sator. Sator is a wealthy, violent, and extremely dangerous man who appears to have some kind of communication with the future. That revelation completely changes the nature of the investigation. The protagonist is not simply chasing a criminal who possesses unusual weapons. He is chasing someone who appears to have access to information coming from a time that has not happened yet. The question becomes how Sator is communicating with the future and what the future wants from him. Priya tells the protagonist that he needs to get close to Sator and discover how the inverted bullets are being produced. But getting close to a man like Sator is not easy. The protagonist needs an entry point, and that entry point turns out to be Sator's wife, Catherine Barton, better known as Kat. Before the protagonist meets her, he speaks with Sir Michael Crosby, who gives him information about Sator's background. Sator grew up in a secret Soviet city that had suffered a major accident and was later used for underground testing. His childhood and early life are therefore connected to a world of secrecy, government experiments, and dangerous technology. Eventually, Sator leaves that environment and builds a fortune. He becomes wealthy enough to move through elite circles and live a life of luxury, but behind that wealth is a man who is deeply controlling and violent. Sator is married to Kat, but their relationship has fallen apart. The protagonist learns that Kat is being controlled through a painting. The painting is a Goya artwork, and Kat was involved in a fraud connected to it. Sator knows about the fraud and uses that information as blackmail. He has the power to destroy Kat's reputation and threaten her relationship with her son Max. That is why Kat is trapped. She is not simply unhappy in her marriage. She is afraid of what Sator can do to her life. Crosby gives the protagonist a fake version of the painting because Sator owns another one, and this creates a reason for the protagonist to enter Sator's world. But as the protagonist watches Kat with her son, it becomes obvious that there is much more going on than an art fraud. Kat is emotionally exhausted. She is trapped inside a relationship with a man who treats people as possessions. Her son Max is the most important person in her life, and Sator understands that. He uses Max as a weapon against her. Kat remembers that there was once a time when she and Sator were genuinely happy. That was during a trip on their yacht in Vietnam. But even that memory is complicated. Sator offered Kat the opportunity to leave him, but there was a terrible condition attached to it. If she left, she could not see Max again. Kat reacted with anger and refused to accept his terms. As she left with Max, she looked back toward the yacht and saw a woman diving from it. This image stays with her. At this point, the audience does not know who the woman is. The protagonist does not know. Kat does not know. But the movie has already shown us a piece of the ending without explaining its meaning. That is one of the most important storytelling techniques in this movie. Events are often shown before their causes are explained. The audience experiences the effect first and only later discovers the cause. Kat eventually contacts the protagonist and asks him to steal the painting back from Sator. The protagonist agrees. He works with Neil and a fixer named Mahir to break into Sator's storage facility at Oslo Airport. The security around the facility is extremely tight, so the team needs a distraction large enough to overwhelm the guards and create an opening. Neil's solution is almost unbelievable. They are going to crash a plane into the hangar. The plan is carried out with military precision. A cargo aircraft carrying gold bars crashes into the building, creating enough confusion for the protagonist and Neil to enter the facility. But once they are inside, the painting becomes almost irrelevant. They find a strange room. A large glass window separates two sides of the facility. There is a machine on each side, and there are bullet holes in the glass. The protagonist immediately notices something strange about them. He says that the bullet holes seem to have come from an event that has not happened yet. That sentence is another major clue. The movie is teaching us that the future can leave evidence in the present. Normally, we think of time as a straight line. First, something happens, then another thing happens, then another. But in this world, the future can affect how the present is understood, because inverted objects can move in the opposite temporal direction. The machines are turnstiles, and when the machine activates, two identical-looking figures emerge. One appears to be moving normally. The other is inverted. The protagonist suddenly finds himself fighting a man whose movements make almost no sense from his perspective. The man appears to react to events before they happen. He reaches for an inverted weapon, and the bullets seem to return to it. The fight feels unnatural because it is. The protagonist is experiencing a confrontation where one participant is moving through time in the opposite direction. Neil eventually returns after dealing with the other side of the operation. He stops the protagonist from killing the inverted man. The strange figure then appears to escape through the loading area. At this point, the protagonist has no idea that he has just fought himself. The audience doesn't fully understand it either. But the movie has planted another piece of the puzzle. The turnstile is eventually explained by Priya. She tells the protagonist that the machine can invert a person's entropy. It was created in the future. This means the technology is not something that originated in the protagonist's present. The future has already developed it, and somehow, knowledge and technology from that future are reaching the past. That is what makes the threat so dangerous. If future humans can communicate with people in the present, and if people in the present can use future technology, then the boundary between past and future has essentially collapsed. Priya also warns the protagonist about Sator. They cannot simply kill him yet. They need to understand his connection to the future. That is crucial. Sator may look like the villain, but he is also a link in a much larger chain. The protagonist needs to discover who is sending him information, why they are sending it, and what they expect him to accomplish. Meanwhile, Kat is told that the painting has been destroyed. This gives her another reason to meet with Sator. The protagonist joins her at a dinner where Sator immediately begins to sense that something is happening behind his back. He knows Kat has been spending time with the protagonist, and his jealousy quickly turns threatening. Sator is not the type of man who accepts losing control. Even the possibility that Kat might be developing a relationship with someone else is enough to anger him. The protagonist, however, remains calm. He manages to persuade Sator to arrange a boating trip where they can discuss the opera operation. This is where the protagonist begins to move deeper into Sator's world. Kat and Sator eventually meet him. Kat attempts to kill Sator by loosening his harness and trying to drown him, but the protagonist intervenes. He turns the boat around and rescues Sator. Kat is furious. From her perspective, the protagonist has just saved the man who has been destroying her life. But the protagonist has a larger objective. He needs Sator alive because Sator is his connection to the source of the inverted technology. Sator then asks the protagonist to help him acquire a case of what appears to be plutonium from Telent. Sator explains that the material is connected to his past. He talks about digging plutonium out of his hometown and killing a co-worker to stop anyone else from gaining better opportunities. This story tells us something important about Sator's character. He has been ruthless for a very long time. His cruelty is not something that appeared because of the time inversion technology. The technology simply gives his existing personality a larger stage. Sator wants control. He wants power, and he is willing to destroy anyone who stands between him and what he wants. Afterwards, Sator threatens Kat again. He makes it clear that if he cannot have her, nobody else will. And that statement becomes one of the key clues to understanding his eventual plan. Sator is a man who cannot accept losing. For him, if he cannot possess something, the alternative is to destroy it. The protagonist then witnesses another brutal side of Sator. A helicopter arrives with a crate containing gold bars. Sator takes one of the gold bars and beats another man to death. The protagonist is spotted and captured. Sator suspects that he may be a spy and attempts to test him using the same Twilight world phrase. But the protagonist refuses to reveal anything. Sator eventually allows him to go and agrees to help him with the operation in Telent. At this point, the protagonist believes he is getting closer to understanding the mystery. But the truth is that he is walking directly into the most dangerous part of the operation. The Telent mission is about to reveal just how complicated time inversion can become, and the object Sator is chasing is not what the protagonist thinks it is. The real mystery is only beginning. The situation becomes much more dangerous when the protagonist and Neil prepare for the Telent operation. Until this point, the protagonist has been trying to understand Sator, his connection to the inverted bullets, and the mysterious technology that allows objects and people to experience time in reverse. But now he is about to discover that the strange rules he has been studying are not just theoretical. They are going to become part of a real chase where his own actions will eventually become connected to events he has already experienced. Before the operation begins, Kat and Sator have another violent confrontation. Kat has reached the point where she can no longer tolerate being controlled by him. She points a gun at Sator, hoping that she can finally end the nightmare. But Sator is stronger and more ruthless. He attacks her and takes her hostage. Once again, Kat finds herself trapped in exactly the situation she has been trying to escape. Meanwhile, the protagonist and Neil are preparing to intercept the vehicle carrying the material Sator wants. The operation is carefully planned. A truck carrying the case is followed, and other vehicles move into position around it. The purpose is to create enough confusion for the protagonist to get inside and take the case before Sator's people can stop him. The protagonist succeeds in reaching the vehicle, but then he opens the case, and what he sees changes the entire situation. It is not plutonium. The object inside is something else, something that the protagonist does not yet fully understand. This is important because Sator has been chasing something much more valuable than ordinary nuclear material. The object is one of the pieces connected to a much larger device, although the protagonist will only learn the true significance of that later. Before he can escape, Sator arrives, and this time Sator has something the protagonist cannot ignore. Kat. Sator holds her hostage and puts a gun to her head. The protagonist now has to make a decision under extreme pressure. He has the mysterious object, but Sator has Kat. The entire situation becomes a carefully constructed trap in which Sator knows that the protagonist's concern for Kat can be used against him. Then the movie introduces another moment that seems impossible if we think about time normally. An inverted car appears. It moves through the chase in reverse. The vehicle had previously appeared to crash. But now we are seeing the event from another temporal direction. This is one of the moments where the film starts forcing us to rethink everything we have already watched. The protagonist appears to throw the case towards Sator. He then tries to move toward another vehicle so that he can rescue Kat. Sator changes vehicles as the situation develops. The chase becomes increasingly chaotic, with ordinary vehicles and inverted vehicles interacting with one another. Eventually, the vehicles stop. Sator's men attack the protagonist and Neil. The operation has failed. The protagonist is captured. But Sator is not satisfied with simply taking the object. He wants to know where the material is. The protagonist is brought into a room similar to the turnstile facility at Oslo Airport. The situation becomes even more disturbing because Sator and Kat are now inverted. Sator has gained access to the same technology the protagonist has been trying to understand. This means that the rules have changed. The protagonist is no longer dealing with an enemy who merely knows about inversion. Sator can use it, and Kat is now trapped inside this inverted environment with him. Sator demands to know where the material is. He wants the object badly enough that he is willing to hurt Kat to get the answer. Then he shoots her with an inverted bullet. The injury is devastating. Because the bullet is inverted, the wound behaves differently from an ordinary gunshot. Kat is not simply suffering from a normal injury. Her body has been affected by an object whose entropy is moving in the opposite direction. The protagonist realizes that she may die. At this point, the mission becomes personal. He cannot simply continue chasing Sator and ignore Kat. He needs to get her out. Sator demands the location of the material, and the protagonist eventually tells him that it is inside the glove box of the inverted BMW. But there is a crucial detail. He is lying. The material is not actually there. The protagonist is trying to buy time. After Sator leaves, Tenet agents arrive. Neil and Agent Ives lead the rescue operation. They attack Sator's men and manage to get the protagonist and Kat out of the facility. But Kat's condition is extremely serious. The inverted bullet has wounded her badly, and normal medical treatment is not enough. The protagonist now realizes that the only way to save her is to use the same technology that caused the problem. They need a turnstile. They need to reverse the direction of her entropy. This is where the protagonist begins to understand one of the most important rules of inversion. If someone has been injured by an inverted object, normal medical treatment may not be enough because the body and the wound are operating under different temporal conditions. Kat needs to be taken backward through time. The protagonist decides to do exactly that. He plans to bring her through a turnstile and travel back toward the previous week. But this requires him to invert himself as well. He puts on the necessary breathing equipment and enters the turnstile. The reason for the mask is another reminder that inversion is not simple time travel. An inverted person cannot simply breathe ordinary air normally because their relationship with the surrounding environment has also changed. The protagonist therefore has to rely on a breathing system while moving backward through time. Once inverted, he returns to the moment of the earlier chase. And this is where something extraordinary happens. The protagonist enters the inverted BMW. Suddenly, the audience can understand what was really happening during the chase we already watched. The car that seemed to crash was part of the protagonist's inverted journey. The events are no longer being seen from the normal direction. We are now watching the same sequence from the opposite side of time. This is the key to understanding why so many scenes in the movie appear impossible. The protagonist is not necessarily changing what happened. He is entering what already happened from another direction. When the BMW catches fire and explodes, the inversion makes the situation even more dangerous. The protagonist's body begins to freeze because the environment is behaving differently from what he is used to. He is eventually recovered. But there is no time to waste. Kat must be taken through the turnstile and moved back toward the Oslo facility. The objective is to reach a point where she can be treated properly. As the protagonist travels backward through time, the audience is finally shown the truth behind another mystery. The strange inverted man at the Oslo facility was not some unknown enemy. It was the protagonist himself. Earlier, when he entered the facility, he fought a masked inverted man. At the time, he believed he was fighting an enemy. Now we understand that he was fighting his own inverted self. This is one of the most important revelations in the entire movie because it changes how we interpret everything that happened earlier. The protagonist had already participated in the event before he understood the event. His future actions had already become part of his past. When he enters the turnstile and becomes inverted, he eventually reaches the same location. He becomes the masked figure. He fights his younger, non-inverted self. From his younger self's perspective, the fight appears to be an attack by an unknown enemy. From the inverted protagonist's perspective, it is simply an event he has already been part of from another direction. This is where the movie's concept of time becomes much more interesting than a simple going back in time story. The protagonist does not go backward and rewrite history. He goes backward and becomes part of the history that already happened. That distinction is extremely important. The film is built around the idea that events can be experienced from different directions, but the events themselves remain connected. The bullet that appears to fly backward was always going to fly backward. The car that appears to reverse through the chase was always going to be there. The masked man who appears during the Oslo operation was always the protagonist. The audience simply did not have enough information to understand it the first time. Eventually, the protagonist manages to uninvert himself. Kat's condition improves. She has been saved. But now the protagonist knows that Sator's plan is much larger than he initially believed. He meets Priya again. This time, the information she gives him changes the entire mission. The mysterious objects Sator has been collecting are not independent pieces of technology. They are pieces of something called the algorithm. The algorithm is potentially capable of inverting the entire world. That is the real danger. The inverted bullets were only the beginning. The turnstiles were only part of the technology. Sator's search for the mysterious material is part of a much larger plan involving the algorithm. And now the protagonist learns why the future is involved. The future humans are dealing with the consequences of global warming. Their world has been damaged by environmental destruction. They believe that reversing the effects of entropy could potentially reverse the environmental damage. From their perspective, the algorithm may be a solution, but from the perspective of people living in the present, the algorithm is a weapon capable of destroying everything. If the entire world is inverted, the consequences could be catastrophic. The future is therefore attempting to solve its own problem by creating a situation that could destroy the people who came before them. This creates one of the movie's most interesting moral questions. Who is actually responsible? The future humans are desperate. They are trying to survive. But their attempt to save themselves could kill billions of people in the past. And Sator is the person standing between these two worlds. He has access to the information. He has access to the technology, and he is willing to use it. Priya explains that the protagonist is not the only person capable of saving the world, but the protagonist believes he can do it. This is another important point about his character. He is not simply following orders anymore. At the beginning of the movie, he was a trained operative who received missions from other people. Now he has begun to understand the bigger picture. He is making his own decisions. He wants to stop Sator. He also wants to use Kat to get close to him. Priya arranges for them to meet on a ship. Kat then reveals something that makes Sator's plan even more disturbing. Sator is dying from pancreatic cancer. His death is approaching. This changes his motivation completely. He is not trying to build a future for himself. He believes there is no future for him. Instead, he wants to decide what happens to everyone else when he dies. His plan is to activate the algorithm at the exact moment he intends to kill himself. If he dies, the world dies with him. This is where Sator's obsession with Kat becomes connected to his obsession with the entire human race. Earlier, Sator had essentially told Kat that if he could not have her, nobody could. Now he is applying the same mentality to the world. If he cannot live, nobody else should live either. He wants to leave behind a dead world rather than accept a future in which he is no longer alive. This makes Sator much more dangerous than a simple businessman or criminal. He is a man who has decided that his own death should become everyone else's death. Kat understands that the moment Sator chooses to activate the algorithm may be connected to the day they spent together on the yacht in Vietnam. That memory becomes extremely important. Kat remembers seeing a woman dive from the yacht. She has always remembered that woman. But now the protagonist understands that the woman may have been connected to the future events. The movie is preparing to close a loop that began much earlier. Kat must return to that day. The protagonist and Neil must travel to the location where Sator plans to hide and activate the algorithm, and Tenet must stop him. The operation will not be a normal attack. The team will use a temporal pincer movement. One group will move forward through time normally. Another group will move through the same battlefield while inverted. The idea is that the two groups can use information from different temporal directions to understand what happened and what is about to happen. This is an important evolution of the concept we have been watching since the beginning. At first, inversion seemed like a strange scientific phenomenon. Then it became a way of escaping danger. Now it has become a military strategy. Time itself is being used as a weapon. The protagonist, Neil and Ives, prepare to enter the final battlefield. The location is connected to the secret city where Sator grew up. It is not simply a random place. It is the beginning of Sator's story. The place where his past started is now going to become the location where the future of humanity may be decided. Meanwhile, Kat prepares to invert herself and travel back to the day of the yacht. Her objective is very different from the soldiers. She does not need to fight an army. She needs to stop Sator from dying at the wrong moment. She understands that Sator wants to die believing that he has won, and Kat realizes that she has one final opportunity to take control away from him. The protagonist and the Tenet team enter the battlefield. Explosions are happening around them. Soldiers are moving in different directions. Some are moving normally. Others are inverted. The battlefield becomes almost impossible to understand because the audience is no longer watching one continuous sequence of cause and effect. Events are happening from both temporal directions. The protagonist pushes toward the location where the algorithm has been hidden. Neil helps him, and once again the mysterious red-tagged soldier appears. This is the same type of mysterious figure the audience saw during the opening opera house sequence. The protagonist reaches a gate. He cannot get through. The red-tagged agent appears to be shot by one of Sator's men, but because the soldier is inverted, what appears to be a normal shooting from one direction is actually part of a completely different sequence of events. The mysterious soldier helps the protagonist get through the gate. The protagonist reaches the algorithm. The mission succeeds, but the identity of the red-tagged soldier remains a mystery, for the moment. At the same time, Kat reaches the yacht. She sees Sator. She realizes that she cannot allow him to die believing that he has won, so she does something very deliberate. She places sunscreen and water on the deck. Then she shoots Sator in the chest. She kills him. But she does not stop there. She pushes his body over the edge of the yacht. His body hits the railing as it falls. Then Kat jumps from the yacht. And suddenly the memory from earlier in the movie becomes clear. The woman Kat saw diving from the yacht was herself. Kat had unknowingly witnessed her own future self. This is another example of the movie's central idea. The event did not happen twice. It was one event viewed from two different points in time. The younger Kat saw the woman diving from the yacht. The older Kat eventually became that woman. The audience finally understands why the image was so important. The movie planted the answer at the beginning of the story and waited until the end. The protagonist, Neil and Ives, disassemble the algorithm. The danger has been contained, but the story is not quite finished. Ives orders the two men to disappear. The algorithm cannot be allowed to fall into anyone else's hands. Neil begins to leave with Ives. Then the protagonist notices something. A red tag. It is attached to Neil's bag, and in that moment the protagonist understands the truth. Neil was the mysterious red-tagged agent. Neil was the person who helped him at the gate. Neil was also connected to the earlier events. The protagonist realizes that his relationship with Neil is not what he thought it was. Neil believes that they have reached the end of their journey together. But for the protagonist, this is only the beginning of something he has not yet done. He will eventually become the person who creates Tenet. He will eventually recruit Neil. He will eventually become responsible for sending Neil into the chain of events that eventually leads them to this moment. That means the friendship between the two men is completely different depending on which direction through time you look at it. From the protagonist's perspective, he meets Neil, works with him, becomes his friend, and eventually says goodbye. From Neil's perspective, the story is much longer. Neil has already known the protagonist from the future. The protagonist will become the person who recruits him. Their friendship has already happened from Neil's perspective. But it has not happened yet from the protagonist's perspective. That is the emotional tragedy of Neil's character. He knows that the journey is ending. The protagonist is only beginning to understand what that journey will eventually become. And this is why Neil's final goodbye is so powerful. He understands that there are no real beginnings or endings in the way ordinary people understand them. There is simply the loop. The protagonist's future actions create the circumstances that lead to his present. His present actions create the circumstances that lead to his future. And Neil is one of the people trapped inside that loop. After Neil leaves, the protagonist has one final loose end to deal with. Priya. In London, Priya and one of her men are watching Kat as she prepares to pick up Max from school. Priya intends to eliminate Kat because she is now a loose end. But the protagonist has already understood the larger truth. He knows that Priya has been working for him all along. He tells her that he will eventually become the founder of Tenet. This means that the organization that recruited him at the beginning of the movie will ultimately be created by him. The protagonist was not simply recruited into Tenet. He was being introduced to something that he himself would eventually create. The entire organization exists because of the protagonist's future actions. This brings the movie full circle. At the beginning, the protagonist is recruited by Tenet. At the end, we discover that he will eventually be the person who creates Tenet. The organization has no conventional beginning. Its future creates its past. The protagonist then kills Priya to protect Kat. He watches Kat leave with Max. And that is where the story ends. But the ending is not really an ending. It is the beginning of the protagonist's real mission. Everything we have watched has effectively been a piece of his future. He is going to build Tenet. He is going to recruit Neil. He is going to set the events into motion. And eventually, those events will lead back to the beginning we already watched. That is why the movie is so difficult to understand on a first viewing. The story is not designed to move like a normal thriller. Normally, we watch a character make a decision, and then we see the consequences of that decision. Here, we may see the consequence first. Then we see the decision later. We may see a person die and only afterward discover that the person was moving backward through time. We may see a bullet enter a gun before discovering that someone fired it. We may see a mysterious masked person fighting the protagonist before discovering that the masked person is the protagonist himself. And we may watch two people friends before learning that one of them has already experienced the friendship from a future point in time. That is the central idea behind the entire story. The protagonist is not trying to change the past. He is becoming part of it. And the strange events that initially look like impossible coincidences are actually events that have always been connected. The Opera House bullet was always going to move backward. The Oslo fight was always going to involve the protagonist fighting himself. The inverted car was always going to be part of the Telent chase. Kat was always going to see herself jumping from the yacht. Neil was always going to be the mysterious red-tagged soldier, and the protagonist was always going to become the person who creates Tenet. Once you understand that, the movie becomes less about asking, how can this happen? And more about asking, from whose direction through time are we watching it happen? That is what makes the story so unusual. The protagonist thinks he is discovering a conspiracy, but eventually he discovers that he is part of the conspiracy's origin. He thinks Tenet is an organization that recruited him. Eventually he learns that he will create it. He thinks Neil is a new friend. Eventually he learns that Neil has been his friend for years, from another point in time. He thinks he is fighting an unknown enemy at Oslo. Eventually, he learns that the enemy was himself, and he thinks the mission is about stopping Sator. But the deeper mission is about ensuring that the algorithm can never destroy the world. The movie therefore ends where another story is beginning. The protagonist walks away knowing more than he did at the beginning, but the audience understands something he has not yet experienced. His greatest mission is still ahead of him. He will build Tenet. He will recruit the people who helped him. He will eventually recruit Neil, and he will create the chain of events that we have just watched. The beginning and the ending are therefore connected in a circle. There is no simple first event. There is no simple final event. There is only a sequence in which the future and the past continually create the circumstances for each other, and that is the real meaning behind the title. Tenet is not simply the name of an organization. It represents the movie's entire philosophy. Events happen because they happen, and the people involved in them may not always understand their own role until they have already become part of the outcome. The protagonist spends the entire story trying to understand the mystery. By the end, he realizes that he is not standing outside the mystery trying to solve it. He is inside it. He is one of the reasons it exists. After the protagonist saves Kat by taking her through the turnstile, he finally begins to understand that the strange events surrounding Sator are connected to something much larger. Until now, he has been following clues one at a time. The inverted bullets led him to Sator. Sator led him to the turnstile, and the turnstile revealed that people can move through time in the opposite direction. But now Priya explains the real danger. The objects Sator has been collecting are pieces of an algorithm, a device capable of inverting the entire world. This changes everything because the protagonist has already experienced how dangerous inversion can be on a small scale. A bullet can move backward. A person can become inverted. A car can appear to drive backward through an accident. But if the entire world were inverted, the consequences would be catastrophic. The algorithm is connected to people from the future. According to what the protagonist learns, future humans are suffering from the consequences of global warming and believe that reversing entropy could help solve their environmental problems, but their solution could destroy the people living in the present. The future is effectively willing to gamble with the existence of its ancestors in order to save itself. Sator is the perfect person for this plan because he has nothing left to lose. Kat reveals that he is dying from pancreatic cancer. He knows his life is coming to an end, so he has decided to make his death meaningful in the most destructive way possible. He plans to activate the algorithm at the moment he dies. Sator's thinking is closely connected to the way he treated Kat. He believes that if he cannot have something, nobody else should have it. He has tried to control Kat, threaten her, separate her from Max, and destroy her freedom. Now he is applying exactly the same philosophy to the entire world. If he cannot have a future, he wants to make sure humanity has no future either. Kat also gives the protagonist an important clue. She believes Sator may choose the day of their yacht trip in Vietnam as the moment to kill himself. That day has always remained in her memory because she saw a woman diving from the yacht. She never understood who the woman was, but now the protagonist realizes that the image may be connected to the strange rules of inversion. The final operation begins. The protagonist, Neil and Ives, prepare to reach the location where Sator has hidden the completed algorithm. They use a temporal pincer movement, with some agents moving normally through time and others moving while inverted. This allows the team to use information from different directions of time. The battlefield becomes extremely confusing because normal and inverted soldiers are operating at the same time. Explosions seem to happen backward, vehicles behave strangely, and actions that look impossible from one perspective become understandable from another. The protagonist pushes toward the location of the algorithm with Neil's help. They eventually reach a gate blocking their path. A mysterious red-tagged soldier appears and helps the protagonist get through. The soldier is apparently shot, but because he is inverted, the event is experienced differently. The protagonist reaches the algorithm. The mission succeeds. But there is still one mystery. Who was that red-tagged soldier? The answer is waiting with Neil. At the same time, Kat has traveled backward to the day of the yacht trip in Vietnam. Her goal is to stop Sator from completing his final plan. Kat knows that Sator wants to die believing he has won. He wants his death to be the final act of control. Even if he cannot survive, he wants to believe that he has destroyed everything around him. Kat refuses to give him that satisfaction. She returns to the yacht and waits for the right moment. She leaves sunscreen and water on the deck before confronting Sator. Then she shoots him in the chest. Sator dies. But Kat does not simply leave his body behind. She pushes him over the side of the yacht, and his body strikes the railing as it falls. Then Kat jumps from the yacht herself, and suddenly one of the movie's earliest mysteries becomes clear. The woman Kat remembered seeing dive from the yacht was Kat herself. The younger Kat had unknowingly witnessed her future self. This is one of the clearest examples of the movie's unusual approach to time. The event did not happen twice. There were not two different women. There was one event experienced from two different points in time. Kat saw the future version of herself before she understood what she was seeing. That same idea has been used throughout the movie. The audience sees the result first and only later learns the cause. After the algorithm is recovered, the protagonist, Neil, and Ives separate it into pieces so that nobody can use it. Ives orders them to remain hidden. The protagonist then notices something on Neil's bag, a red tag. He immediately understands the truth. Neil was the mysterious red-tagged soldier. The man who helped him during the final operation was Neil. This also means that Neil was involved in other events the protagonist has already experienced. The protagonist finally understands the strange nature of their friendship. He thought he met Neil during this mission and became friends with him. But from Neil's perspective, their relationship is much older. The protagonist will eventually become the founder of Tenet and will recruit Neil in the future. Neil will then become involved in the events that the protagonist has already experienced. This is why Neil's goodbye carries so much weight. The protagonist believes he is saying goodbye to a friend he has only recently met. Neil knows that their friendship has already happened from his perspective. He knows the protagonist will eventually become the person who recruits him. He knows he will eventually return to the events surrounding the algorithm, and he knows that he will eventually make the sacrifice necessary to ensure that the protagonist succeeds. The emotional power of Neil's character comes from the fact that he understands the loop better than the protagonist does. The protagonist is only beginning to discover his future. Neil has already lived part of it. The final loose end is Priya. In London, Priya is watching Kat as she goes to collect Max from school. Priya considers Kat dangerous because she knows too much about Sator and Tenet's operations. But before Priya can act, the protagonist arrives. He kills Priya's gunman and sits behind Priya in her car. Then he tells her something that completely changes the meaning of the entire story. He will become the founder of Tenet. The protagonist has spent the movie believing that Tenet is an organization that recruited him. Now he realizes that he will eventually be responsible for creating it. This creates the movie's biggest causal loop. Tenet recruits the protagonist. The protagonist eventually creates Tenet. He creates the organization that will later recruit him. The same kind of loop exists with Neil. The protagonist meets Neil. Later, the protagonist will recruit Neil. Neil then becomes the person who helps the protagonist during the events we have already watched. The future creates the conditions for the past. The past creates the conditions for the future. There is no simple beginning. The protagonist then kills Priya because she has become a threat to Kat. He watches Kat leave with Max. And the story ends. But the ending is really the beginning of the protagonist's true mission. At the start, he was simply an agent who survived a test and was recruited into Tenet. At the end, we discover that he will become the person behind Tenet. He will eventually recruit Neil. He will eventually create the organization that has guided him throughout the story. This also explains why the protagonist is never given a conventional name. His identity is less important than his role. He is the person who stands at the center of the entire temporal loop. The strange bullet at the beginning was not an isolated event. The inverted fight at Oslo was not an unrelated encounter. The backwards-moving BMW was not simply a strange car chase. Kat seeing the woman diving from the yacht was not merely a memory. Neil's red tag was not simply a visual detail. All of these things were pieces of the same puzzle. The movie deliberately shows the audience the consequences before explaining their causes. That is why the first viewing can feel confusing. The protagonist sees things before understanding them. Later, he travels backward and becomes part of those same events. The masked man he once believed was an enemy turns out to be himself. The mysterious soldier at the final battle turns out to be Neil. The woman Kat remembers seeing on the yacht turns out to be Kat herself, and the organization that recruited the protagonist turns out to be something he will eventually create. That is the central idea behind the entire story. The protagonist is not changing the past, he is fulfilling it. When he goes backward through time, he does not rewrite events that already happened. Instead, he becomes the person responsible for the events he previously witnessed. That is why the movie's world operates like a closed circle. The future influences the past influences the future. And the people trapped inside that circle often do not understand what they are doing until they reach another point in their timeline. The ending also gives the protagonist a different kind of responsibility. He has saved the world, but now he knows that the fight cannot simply end. He knows about the future. He knows about inversion. He knows about the algorithm. He knows that Tenet exists, and he knows that he will eventually become the person who organizes the operations that protected humanity. The story, therefore, does not truly finish with the destruction of the algorithm. The real ending is the moment the protagonist realizes that he is responsible for the beginning. He started the movie thinking he had been recruited into someone else's war. He ends it understanding that he will eventually create the organization behind that war. He started by meeting Neil. He ends by realizing that Neil's story with him has already happened from another direction. He started by seeing impossible events. He ends by understanding that many of those impossible events were caused by people he already knows. That is what makes the story different from an ordinary spy thriller. It is not simply about stopping a villain. It is about understanding a world where cause and effect can run in opposite directions. The protagonist does not win by overpowering time. He wins by understanding that time has already connected everything, and the most important revelation is that he himself is part of that connection. The movie therefore ends with the world apparently safe. Kat reunited with Max, Sator dead, the algorithm separated, and Tenet protected. But the protagonist's journey has only just begun. The man we followed throughout the story will eventually become the founder of the organization that guided him. The friendship he thought was beginning with Neil will eventually become something that Neil has already experienced. And the events that looked like impossible coincidences were always part of the same chain. The beginning was already connected to the ending. The ending was already connected to the beginning, and that is the real meaning of the movie's strange, circular structure. The protagonist does not simply travel through time, he becomes part of it. By the time the story reaches its final moments, it becomes clear that this was never simply a story about stopping a terrorist or preventing a dangerous weapon from being activated. The deeper story is about time, choice, sacrifice, friendship, and the strange possibility that the future can create the circumstances of the past. What initially looks like a complicated spy mission gradually reveals itself as one enormous circle, where every character is connected to events that they may not fully understand when they first experience them. The protagonist begins the movie as an ordinary intelligence operative, although even that description eventually becomes misleading. He is introduced without a name, and that is fitting because at the beginning he does not know what his ultimate role will be. He believes he is simply another agent carrying out a dangerous assignment. He survives the test at the beginning, is recruited into Tenet, and begins investigating the strange inverted bullets. At first, his goal is simply to understand what he has encountered, but as the investigation continues, he realizes that the problem is much bigger. The bullets are connected to inversion. Inversion is connected to the turnstiles. The turnstiles are connected to the future. The future is connected to Sator. Sator is connected to the algorithm, and the algorithm has the potential to threaten the entire world. What makes the situation even more disturbing is that the people in the future are not necessarily trying to destroy the present because they hate it. They are trying to solve their own problems. Their world has suffered from environmental destruction, and they believe reversing entropy might provide a way to undo the damage. But their solution creates another problem. Saving the future could mean destroying the past. That makes the conflict more complicated than simply good versus evil. Sator is certainly dangerous, cruel, and selfish, but the technology surrounding him exists because people in the future are desperate. They are willing to risk the existence of earlier generations to save themselves. Sator becomes the person who can turn that idea into a reality because he has already lost his connection to ordinary morality. His cancer is a major part of his motivation. Sator knows that he is dying. He has no normal future to look forward to. Instead of accepting that, he decides to control the moment of his death and make his death meaningful through destruction. He wants to activate the algorithm when he dies, effectively making his own death the trigger for a catastrophe. That decision perfectly matches his personality. Sator has always wanted control. He controls Kat. He uses her mistakes against her. He threatens her relationship with Max. He refuses to allow her to live freely. And when Kat tries to escape, he responds with violence. His attitude toward Kat can be summarized by his belief that if he cannot have something, nobody else should have it. By the end, that personal obsession becomes global. If Sator cannot have a future, he wants to make sure nobody else has one either. That is what makes him such a dangerous antagonist. He is not simply trying to win. He is willing to destroy the game itself if he knows he cannot be the winner. Kat's story provides the emotional balance to all of this. While the protagonist is trying to save the world, Kat is fighting for something much more personal. Freedom from Sator and the ability to live with her son Max without being controlled by her husband. Her relationship with Sator shows how destructive control can become when it is disguised as love. Kat remembers the yacht in Vietnam as a time when she and Sator were once happy, but that memory eventually becomes part of the time loop. When Kat travels back to that moment and sees Sator, she knows that she has the opportunity to take control of her own life. She kills him. Then she pushes his body from the yacht and jumps into the water. And that reveals the meaning behind the mysterious woman she had seen years earlier. The woman was herself. This is one of the best examples of the movie's central concept because the scene demonstrates that time does not always need to be changed to produce a surprising result. The event was always going to happen. Kat simply experiences it from two different points in her own timeline. The same idea applies to the protagonist. At the beginning, he sees impossible events and tries to understand them. Later, he discovers that he himself is responsible for some of those events. The inverted fight at Oslo is a perfect example. He originally believes he is fighting an unknown enemy. Later, after using the turnstile, he realizes that the masked inverted man was actually himself. This means that the protagonist was always part of the event he had already witnessed. He did not go back to change what happened. He went back and completed what had already happened. That is the most important rule to understand when looking at the movie's ending. The characters are not constantly rewriting history. They are fulfilling history. That is why the story can operate like a closed loop. The bullet moves backward because it was always going to move backward. The inverted car appears during the chase because it was always part of the chase. Kat sees herself jumping from the yacht because she was always going to become that woman. The protagonist fights himself because he was always going to enter the turnstile and become the inverted opponent. And Neil becomes the mysterious red-tagged soldier because he was always going to return to the moment when the protagonist needed him. Neil's story is probably the most emotional part of the ending. At first, Neil appears to be simply another operative who joins the protagonist during the mission. Their friendship develops naturally through dangerous situations. They trust each other, save each other, and eventually become close. But the ending completely changes the meaning of that relationship. The protagonist discovers the red tag on Neil's bag and realizes that Neil was the mysterious soldier who helped him during the final operation. Then he understands something even bigger. The protagonist will eventually become the founder of Tenet, and he will eventually recruit Neil. That means Neil has already experienced a much larger friendship with the protagonist from his own perspective. For the protagonist, meeting Neil is the beginning of their friendship. For Neil, the same relationship is already approaching its end. That is why Neil's goodbye is so powerful. He knows that the protagonist has not yet experienced the future that Neil already knows. Neil knows where the road leads. He knows that he must return to the past and become part of the events that have already happened. His sacrifice is therefore not simply an act of bravery. It is an acceptance of the role he has already chosen. He understands that if he refuses, the events that saved the world may never happen. This gives the friendship between Neil and the protagonist a tragic quality. They are friends, but they are experiencing that friendship in opposite directions through time, and that is exactly what the entire movie is doing. The audience is also experiencing the story in the wrong direction. We see results before causes. We see mysteries before explanations. We see people doing things without understanding why. Then later, the movie returns to those events and shows us what was really happening. That is why the film becomes much easier to appreciate after understanding its structure. The first viewing is about confusion. A second viewing is about recognition. Once you know the major twists, earlier scenes take on completely different meanings. The opera house sequence is no longer simply an opening action scene. The strange bullet becomes the first sign of inversion. The red-tagged soldier becomes a clue to Neil's identity. The Oslo fight becomes a confrontation between the protagonist and himself. The inverted BMW becomes part of the protagonist's own actions. Kat's memory of the woman on the yacht becomes a glimpse of her own future, and Tenet itself becomes the biggest loop of all. The protagonist is recruited by Tenet, but eventually he becomes the person who creates Tenet. This raises a fascinating question. Who started Tenet? The movie deliberately refuses to provide a simple answer. If the protagonist creates Tenet because Tenet recruited him, then the organization exists inside a causal loop. There is no obvious beginning. The future creates the conditions for the past, and the past creates the conditions for the future. That is why the protagonist's lack of a conventional name becomes meaningful. He is not important because of his identity in the traditional sense. He is important because of his role. He becomes the person at the center of the entire operation. He is both the agent who is recruited and the person who eventually creates the organization. He is both the person trying to understand the mystery and one of the people responsible for creating it. The ending, therefore, does not simply tell us that the protagonist has won. It tells us that he has discovered what his life is going to become. Sator is dead. Kat is alive. Max is safe. The algorithm has been separated. The immediate threat has been stopped. But the protagonist's real work is only beginning. He now knows that the organization he worked for is connected to his own future. He knows that Neil was never just a stranger who happened to cross his path. He knows that the people around him are connected to a plan that stretches beyond ordinary time. And he understands that his future decisions will eventually create the circumstances that brought him to this point. That is the final irony of the story. The protagonist spends the entire movie trying to prevent the future from destroying the present. By the end, he realizes that the future is already influencing everything he has done. He is not simply fighting against time. He is part of time's structure, and perhaps that is the real meaning of the movie. The story asks us to stop thinking about time as a straight line with a beginning, middle, and end. Instead, time is presented as something that can fold back on itself. An action can become its own consequence. A person can become the cause of an event they have already witnessed. A friendship can begin for one person while ending for another. And a mission can appear to have started in the past, even though its true origin lies in the future. That is why the final scene feels both satisfying and unsettling. The world has been saved, but there is no traditional celebration. The protagonist simply watches Kat and Max leave. Then he walks away knowing that his future is waiting for him. He will create Tenet. He will recruit Neil. He will continue protecting the world from threats connected to inversion, and the cycle will eventually bring everything back to where it started. The movie, therefore, does not really end. It closes the loop. And that is what makes the story so memorable. It is not simply a film about spies, guns, explosions, or time travel. It is a story about people accepting their place inside events that are bigger than their understanding. Sator believes he can control the future through destruction. Kat takes back control of her own life. Neil accepts his sacrifice because he understands the larger loop. And the protagonist finally realizes that the organization he thought he had joined will one day become his own creation. In the end, the greatest twist is not that time can move backward. It is that the protagonist's entire journey was always connected to where he was going. He thought he was discovering Tenet. In reality, he was becoming Tenet. And that is why the final moments are so important. The story closes exactly where the protagonist's real journey begins.